Welcome back to the MAP podcast. I'm Wes.
And I'm John.
Let's jump right into part 2 of our conversation with Rodrigo.
So what's interesting about this part is we're learning a little bit more about Rodrigo finding himself in the process of being a performer, an actor and comedian, and also musician as well. So it's really interesting to hear the evolution of himself as a performer and how he found himself within that.
All right, here we go.
Right. You know, I'm never going to be like, you have to bring an idea, which a lot in the acting world, it's kind of like that. It's
right.
Like, you're coming today, you have to bring one idea. And I always get I feel this pressure all the time of being like, really? I have to, okay. Like,
right.
And sometimes I feel like my idea sucks. But with music, it's so open. And I love the idea of being able to mess up and trying something out.
Right.
That's fantastic, because even a lot of the folks that we work with in sort of our context, that's what we always say, you know, like with music, there's no right way to do it.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, even when you mentioned getting that beat machine and just having that little beat that you just kind of kept in the back for a little while, it's just like, you know, the idea of just creating something in general and having that there and then, you know, using that to build off of later or not, or just having that cathartic process in itself of just being creative for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And music's so like satisfying like that, because you can get it back so quickly, right? Like you create a beat and then you listen to the beat and it's like, oh, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. Like, there's been a couple of moments where I will ask someone to record, like, be like, send me something, like, whatever. Like, if you want to add something, they add something and then it doesn't sound the best, or it just doesn't add anything to the song,
right?
And then I don't put it in, and then later on they're like, "Yo, like I spent a good afternoon on that, and you didn't use it," and I'll be like, "I know, I'm sorry, it just didn't really do much for the song," and then, but there are those moments, so yeah, that's just the way it is.
It's all part of it for sure, and I think that, you know, it's funny you should say that about the acting thing, because I feel like your approach to creating music just ends up being so conducive to people coming up with great things, because their hand isn't forced to create something. You're just like, hey, be yourself, let's have some fun with it, totally open space. And then when people are able to just kind of not really stress about it and just be creative and in the moment, then that's when you have these amazing results. And so you know, it doesn't surprise me. And also what I was going to say is, everyone that you work with, whether they're comedians or actors or musicians, like, these people do it for a living. So it's also, you know,
very talented.
Yeah, very talented. So it's like, obviously, because they're so skilled at what they do anyway, chances are whatever ideas they come up with are probably going to sound good. So this is also just like very conducive to the creative process, right?
Yeah, there's
for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, a good example would be Simeon Abbott, who does the keys.
Right.
He plays keys in Jar Hands Man. He played keys at the live show. He's an amazing composer and writer. And one time he came up with this like boy band-esque synth song, like an instrumental. I got my hands on it, and I made a boy band, like Backstreet type of song called Sad Dad.
Right.
And I made it and everything. And then this was a while later, and I was like, oh, this would be a good Fog and Laser song. And I sent it back to him, and then he had said, you know what, that synth that I made, it's being used for something else now. So do you mind not using the instrument, like the stuff that I made? And I said, okay, I'm sure I can like do something with the lyrics and whatever that I recorded, and just not use the instrumental. And Nick Rose, who is also in Dwayne Gretzky, unreal singer. He's got this like Paul Simon type of voice, and I thought it would be really fun to make Sad Dad into this acoustic song, like a really mellow acoustic song. So I asked him if he would sing it and perform it at the live show.
Yeah.
And he nailed it. It was just,
it was amazing.
He made it
really
into
funny.
its own thing. And I was like, that's what that turned into. And now that's what that is.
Yeah.
I was like, if I hadn't had if I hadn't had recorded those lyrics on top of Simeon's weird synth track, we wouldn't have had that. So I don't know, it just transformed into this thing where I'm like, Nick, here are the lyrics. Can you do something with this?
Right.
And Nick was like, oh yeah, I can. But it's just, that's kind of the fun of it, where you're giving all these amazing performers free range to just kind of play around. And that's what everybody kind of wants at the end of the day, I feel, is just like, I'm never gonna say like, don't play that. Because I just know that you're going to come up with something that's best for the performance,
Right.
That's kind of what I am with you. Like, I've never really been like, John, don't play that. It's more just like, John will play something, and if you don't have anything, it's okay not to play something then,
right.
That's what I find too, especially in a band. I'm like, everybody doesn't have to play something.
Yeah, for sure.
If you feel like you can't contribute at that moment, or if it doesn't add anything, it's okay to, sit down and take a break for a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. And for sure, like another positive with that group dynamic, and it's a fluid group too, right? Like people sort of come in and out depending on who's available and things like that. But it's one thing, actually, I think it just reiterates the theme of who you are, how you create, and the vibe that you bring to like the playing of the music. Is I think people are also really good at knowing when to not do something, or like playing something and being like, what do you think? And if people go, I'm not sure. And you go, yeah, you're right. I won't play that. That's like all part of the process, which I think is also just a very cool aspect to it. But so here's a question for you, and maybe we can use this to send it home today. Wes and I always like to ask this question when we do groups, and also when we do our podcasts and everything like that. This is a really heavy duty question. Just kidding. No. What music are you listening to? Yeah. What kind of music are you listening to?
Oh,
or
wow.
Like, so like right now, or what do you find that like, what are some of your go-tos? And I know a bit of this because I've known you forever, but I'd be curious to know even like what you're listening to right now.
Right now, well, we were talking about vinyls earlier.
We were,
The last vinyl that I bought was Mac Miller.
Cool.
I really got into Mac Miller because I really got into Anderson .Paak.
Right.
And then I started listening to Mac Miller, and I find his like groove and his style was so I think it's also like that, like Thundercat was in there, that whole crew, and just those like bass lines and like just their grooves are so good, and his lyrics on top of that, I don't know what it is, but they just hit me very, very hard.
Right.
And I find that once I find an artist like that, I'm like, I'm going to listen to everything they've ever done.
Yeah.
But I've been listening to that. I've been listening to him, and I've been listening to, what was the other thing? I mean, I listened to a lot of classic albums.
Right.
I was listening to, Mac Miller, and I want to say, the Allman Brothers has always been, the Allman Brothers has always been a thing for me, but it's like Mac Miller, the Allman Brothers, and a lot of 90s grunge.
Cool.
I've been really just pumping a lot of 90s grunge.
That's awesome.
Like one hit wonders 90s grunge.
Okay. Yeah, that checks out. Even beforehand, actually, before we started recording, we were talking about different live performances, and you, I think in basically one breath, you mentioned Pearl Jam, Drake, Usher, Alanis Morissette, Bare Naked Ladies, I don't know,
Outcast,
exactly. I'm like, even right there, like obviously that's a little bit different because they're live performances, but you seem to really just be quite open to a variety of different styles of music and artists, which is awesome.
I am fully proud to say that I am a concert whore. I am a concert whore to the absolute max.
Right.
And if anything, I've learned in the past 2 years, just take advantage of any performer that you want to see live and support them. And mostly because, performers, they don't make a lot of money.
Right.
Even the successful ones that you see working all the time, they don't make a lot of money.
That's why you see them all the time, because they have to do it. Yeah.
You see these that's what it is. You see these they probably do have a nice stash because they've been working for so long.
Right.
But when you see someone who's, you know, still touring or whatever, it's because like that's what they do and like that's their job. But yeah, I'm going to see Rage Against the Machine on Saturday.
Nice.
But yeah, I think I like, which is the reason why I do so many different genres on Fog and Lasers, is just I like all types of music, even country. I don't mind. I think I like everything as long as it's as long as it like hits you a certain way.
Right.
Well, I would be curious to know too, like, do you like comedy music? Like, what are some of your favorite like
Weird Al?
Weird Al.
I think that's why I did. I think that's why I. It's weird because when you're first starting out in anything, like when I first started out, like John and I we were in a band together for a little while. And I felt after a while, I was like, this isn't my calling. Like, this isn't what I think I'm going to be doing, because I wanted to get into comedy and acting.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, if I'm going to be an actor, I got to go for it. And I just got to go and do it. And it started going. I started doing it. And then after a little while, I was like, wait, I'm good at like the comedy thing is happening with it. So I was like, I'll blend those two. And then after a while, it was like, the thing that separated me from in live shows was that whenever I would sing or like kind of do a musical thing, I was pretty good at it. Like I was good, and I would stand out in shows, and I was good at like, you know, like giving a little melody or something. And then I was like, maybe I should start singing again. And then I started, I went into another project called Falling Androids with Chris Rennick, who is a part of Fog and Lasers. And we did that for a little bit, and it felt good, but it still felt, I'm not going to say empty. It just felt like it wasn't what I was pursuing musically, because that's what you're trying to do, is you're like, what represents what I'm really trying to do?
Right.
And one day we just ended up, coming up with Whip Your Dick and Tits Out. And it just hit. Like, we were like sitting there going, oh my God. And I immediately went, I want to make more songs like this. Like, I want to do this over and over, and I want to make more. And around that time, my friend Robin Hatch was in Dwayne Gretzky at the time. And I was working with her at Hot Docs Film Festival, and she just by chance had said, hey, I'm doing a show on New Year's with Dwayne Gretzky. Do you want to come and sing a song? And I said, sure. What song? And she's like, Livin' La Vida Loca.
Oh.
Which to me, I thought, it's a funny, like, for me, it would be a funny song to do. People would like it. And I could do that. I can do that song.
Right.
And I did it. And it was, it went over great. People were cheering. And I thought, this is the way I'm supposed to perform.
Right.
Like, this is my voice in this. Like, I just felt like taking myself too seriously and pushing the no. This is what I need to be like as a singer was just the wrong take on it. It was like, what energy do I give off to people? Like, that's the way I'm like, that's what people are enjoying. So like, let's keep doing this. And I was enjoying it too. I felt like at the end of the day, it was just this, it was like a party happening where everybody was getting something out of it. And as a performer, I look at that when I go see performers now. But yeah, that was it. And that's how that started. And like, it just turned into something where I was like, yeah, I want to make some comedy music. And I kept doing it at shows. People were liking it. But like what I just said that's what I wanted to give off as a performer. And I value that when I see different performers doing that. One show that I actually did see a month ago in Syracuse was Paul McCartney.
Wow.
And that was probably one of the biggest moments for me, because I mean, everybody loves the Beatles. Like, that's a thing, you know?
Sure.
Like, everybody likes the Beatles, but at the end of the day, we went there, and within the first 3 songs, I was like, oh, he's here with us. Like
Right.
he's not just, this isn't just like the machine of Paul McCartney that you're seeing. Like all of his musicians in his band had the biggest smiles on their faces.
Right.
They loved playing with Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney loved being there. He was talking to people and like giving off this vibe of like, oh, we're all here. No. We're all here for the next 3 hours. And everyone was like, oh my God, like I'm bawling at times.
Right.
I heard when the second I heard Can't Buy Me Love, a song that I think all of us have heard thousands of times.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Still hit me so hard because I was listening to Paul McCartney do it at that moment.
that's
But I
cool.
was like, that's what it is right there. Like he was there with us at that moment singing it. And he, you know, no matter how far I was in the crowd, he was still like, I felt like he was singing it to me. You
Right.
know? But it's stuff like that where I'm like, that's the type of performer that people aim to be, where you're like, I want to make people feel like that. I
Right.
want to make people feel like, you know, the energy that I'm giving off is the real me. So that's
Right.
what you're kind of searching for, is like, who is that? Like, why am I constantly trying to find the person I want to be? Meanwhile, I've been there all along. I'm a funny guy where I, you know, have been in these bands and I can write a funny song, and it's like, just do that for a little bit and see what happens, and people will value that and be like, that's the energy that we want from you. And I actually think I mean, I'd say it takes a while to find that when you're a performer,
Right.
but once you do find that, it's just, if you can really just contribute in your community like that, it'll make everything, your life will be better.
And
Right.
and even for yourself then, like what do you value most about performing, like it being in front of people? What do you get from it? What do you take away from it? Like just from your own
Learning about yourself, making mistakes and being okay with making mistakes is something that I think a lot of comics do it all the time. Like I said, where you're like, oh, I bombed, but you know, I learned a couple of things out of it. But I feel like that's a true life lesson, is just, you know, nothing's ever going to be perfect, and just
Right.
keep making, you know, out of 10 mistakes, you're going to learn something and you're going to get something right. But I like the energy of going to a place, trying something out, trying a new idea out. Like tonight, I have this idea that I've never done, and I'm like, I messaged my friend Adam about it, and I was like, what do you think if I do this? And he was like, oh, that sounds so dumb. Do it. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. But like, that's kind of why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it for a paycheck. It's not like I'm going into it being like, well, I'm going to get some cash out of this. No, I'm not getting it because it's not going to be broadcast. I'm going because I want, and at the end of the day, it's nice to get attention, but
there it is.
Yeah. But,
no, it's true. But it's, the thing is though, and for how I'm hearing you speak about it, really the word that comes to mind is genuine. You know, like you are, even the fact that you alluded to, like I also don't mind the attention. It's all very genuine. This is all just like very much you. And it's so amazing that you have been able to find that. And I would say like the Paul McCartney, you're the same as Paul McCartney. No, no, but actually,
oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, you both have great voices, but no, like, so what you're describing with Paul McCartney is he was just genuinely himself. And that was a part of what you appreciated about the show. And then at the same time, you're like, very skilled performer, very skilled songwriter. And that comes just from the lifetime of experience that he has. And that's a similar trajectory to what you were describing, where you're like, we played in a band when we were younger. And I absolutely remember having conversations with you, especially as you started to get more and more into acting, where you're like, I think the thing I'm realizing is it's not as much about being a singer as it is performing, loving the performing side of things,
Yeah.
And for you to kind of go through that process of identifying sort of, acting and comedy, and how that there's like a healthy marriage there, a nice marriage between those two things. And then how the music almost like sort of went to the back burner, but then it was also so part of the process, but then it kind of found its way back. And so, through this whole process, you find yourself, and that also allows you to genuinely be yourself. And I think that that's also the marker of a great performer and someone that people want to watch, but then also why I think people specifically like to watch you and appreciate your performances and your creative performances, like music and acting and all those things too, is because you are genuinely able to be yourself. And I think that's amazing, and I applaud you for it, because it's like not an easy thing to do, and it's so amazing that you sort of arrived at that conclusion for yourself.
I mean, yeah, and also you're just constantly you're constantly learning, and you're constantly, like I said, you're just constantly making mistakes and being like, oh, okay, cool. So
right,
this didn't work out, but nobody's perfect.
Exactly.
You're just always going to be learning from, especially performers.
Yeah.
And it really is something where, from the performers that I admire, I look at them and I say, I say, like, this stuff isn't like I'm going to give myself like 10 years to do this. It's like, no, this is like the life you chose. And, I do okay. Like I get, I work, I get to create, but at the end of the day, it's not like, I'm never going home going, where's the next one coming from? Or what's the next bit that's going to make me famous or something like that. It's more just like I said, like sometimes it comes, sometimes it doesn't, but I get to do this. And it's, that's kind of the best part, is like, you call yourself an artist or whatever it is, a performer, but like, it's just what you do.
Right. And just in that same vein, just the ability to be present, right? When you're on stage or when you're performing or when you're with people in that space, like even you mentioned that Paul McCartney story, just being there with people and being present and not thinking about the next thing, not worrying about whatever's coming next, because you're just kind of there, creating or performing or
you don't know what's going to happen at those moments. Like I said, like just you can make mistakes, like be on stage, just be there with those people. I've been guilty of that, where at a show I'll be like, I'll just do like 3 things that I know will probably go over well. I've been doing them for the last year, and now I'm like, fuck, like it just doesn't make me feel good at the end of the day. I walk out of there going, I didn't really learn anything. I just kind of did the same shit that I've been doing. So now it's like, gonna try this thing out, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll do it again 6 more times and see if it works. But yeah, it really is about being present. And like I said, the performers that are always there with the audience are the ones that I admire. And I'm like, I want to be like that.
Right.
No matter how long it takes.
Yeah. And those are the best shows, right? Like when something like that really hits home and is memorable. So, well, hey, thanks for being present with us today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
This was a great chat.
Yeah, we appreciate your time and obviously some really cool stories.
Where do you guys send the check?
It's
that's John's department.
Yeah, we'll get back to
those
you.
Pearl Jam tickets are pretty expensive. So.
Daddy needs a Pearl Jam ticket. No, but thanks so much, man. It was awesome to just hear you talk about the whole process and just the process of you finding yourself within this as well, which again is really truly remarkable. And I think that I don't think that as many people are able to, they may not be as mindful of it, and therefore they may not be able to achieve that. And it sounds like you are just very mindful of yourself within this process and as a performer and things like that. And it's just really amazing for you to have found that footing. And again, this is what's really cool, is because I've known you for so long is I've sort of been able to observe this as like a bystander, sort of like someone from the side, but I've been able to also sort of engage, whether it's seeing you perform or being a part of the performance. So again, I just applaud you for that, and I'm so happy that you're
thanks,
at that
man.
moment. Yeah, and
I mean, I also think a lot of it has to do with opportunity and luck, and it's not just I just happen to be in the right communities and you know, learn stuff from those communities where I was like, okay, so you know, I'm gonna perform where people go see performers, you know.
Yeah. And that's all just part of the process, right? And also though, like, it is it's great that you acknowledge the fact that there are some of those variables too, but also, like, you know, because of how mindful you are of the process and how, you know, you're just like trying to learn and really just ultimately better yourself. I think that's also where those opportunities come from too.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know as well that this flattery is your payment. There's actually going to be no paycheck. I'm just
as
really,
long as
really...
I can hit just one Peruvian boy, you know, inspire a Peruvian boy,
right,
somewhere, then it's all worth it.
Well, this is perfect because we actually
as long as I can hit a Peruvian boy. If you could,
that's where we'll end the episode.
Then it's all worth it. So really, at the end of the day,
Rodrigo, the abuser.
Yeah, are you a young Peruvian boy? Because watch out, Rodrigo's looking for you. No, and that works out because we actually just broadcast this podcast in Peru exclusively. so probably there's a pretty high likelihood that one Peruvian boy will hear this and then ultimately be very scared for his life.
Right.
Yeah. No, but thanks again, man. Really appreciate it, and you know, love you very much, and thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Talking.